Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am in the 1982 Dodge Turbocharger concept. Up front is a 2.2 liter turbocharged inline 4 and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to share this awesome piece of not only Dodge and K-car history, but just car history with you in general, so let's get right into it. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 2.2 liter turbocharged inline 4 under the hood. Well, if you're familiar with K-cars from this era, that doesn't sound all that crazy. However, this concept came out 2 years before the turbo 2.2 liter was actually put into production charger. So this was kind of a preview of what was to come. It made 195 horsepower and could achieve 125 miles an hour. Now, this is a little bit different than the production 2.2 turbo. It had about 2 less years of R&D to figure it out, but it was really cool to see that this was the future that they were going for, and then they actually implemented part of that. Now, that's one of the very few parts of this car that actually did make it to production, but that was very cool. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed manual transmission. Love to see that. However, last but not least, it is front-wheel drive. So with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a whole array of dials. We have the oil temperature, oil pressure, speedometer, tachometer, coolant temperature, turbo pressure, fuel gauge, voltage, and engine hours. So all of this stuff, really, really cool, and none of this made it into the production vehicle. The steering wheel doesn't have anything on it, nothing too crazy over there, but off to the left, we do have a climate vent, headlight switch, and the temperature control. I am not seeing an AC button here, which I sure would have liked to have seen back in the day, but again, this was just a show car. Down below, we do have the light bar switch. Kind of interesting to see that. And then moving on to the door, we have the latch to get in and out and a little tiny window. So we don't get roll down windows here in the turbocharger concept, but we do have these little cutouts, which is very, very cool. Moving into the center, we already talked about the gauges up at the top. We don't have a radio. I don't know if it would have came with one or was originally built with one. It looks like it would have. Maybe this had like a radio, like a CB radio or something like that. But off to the left, we have an interesting badge, PPG. That's who was sponsoring the series. And this has the vehicle specifications on it. So fuel, oil, RPM limit, turbo boost limit, all of that right there. And then we get the shifter in the center, tall, mighty, looks fantastic. However, there are no cup holders here in the Charger concept, so it fails the big friggin' bottle test. Then we do have the handbrake and these tiny, tiny little bucket seats. They are not comfortable at all, but this was meant to just do parade laps, essentially. So, you know, you didn't have to think about the family of 4 trying to squeeze in here. They're racing seats, they're small buckets, and they actually do help out because the gull wing is kind of short. So these seats themselves are very short, which is very nice. Now, luckily, we don't have any back seats and we don't have any openable trunk, but we will hop out and I'll do a handheld exterior review. So here we have the exterior of the turbocharger, and as you can see, the nose is completely different, and of course we do get that Chrysler badge up on the hood. We also get these really cool sort of turnkey hood latches, but look at this thing. It really looks like something out of Blade Runner. I love these wheels. So 80s, and we saw these in the late 80s on like RX-7s and stuff like that, the sort of bottle cap style, but so cool. I love the wheel coverings, the sort of air intake, which it is front engine. So you can see the PPG race car 1982 IndyCar World Series. This used to actually be red. I'll show it here. It actually used to be red. They painted it, I assume, for the 82 year, but coming around the back, love to see this. For some reason, Dodge is upside down on the spoiler. Not totally sure why. We do get a little Federal Signal light bar. Really cool to see this, those old rotators. Really, really neat stuff there. But coming around the back, what I wanted to note was the taillights. This style of taillight didn't really catch on in the 80s, but we see this in like the 2011 onward Dodge Charger. So, and the
current Durango, which is really, really cool. Popping around the other side here, very neat to see all of this. Again, this car was just so futuristic, and it is cool that we saw that taillight shape later on in production vehicles. But this is the exterior of the turbocharger concept, which I am just in love with. So, so cool. And of course, it does get gull wing doors, which sells it. They never put these actually into production, but very cool for the concept.
So with all of this being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think about this vehicle? Well, this is very, very special and a one-of-one vehicle, which is always cool to see. I think what's interesting is the parts of this car that did make it to production. Essentially, this drivetrain would later be seen in the normal Dodge Chargers. However, obviously, the body did not make it. However, it is cool that you could see the shape of that taillight would later be used in the production model Charger here in 2011, 2012. So very, very cool to see the little hints of it. But I think the biggest thing is that a lot of people have misconceptions about concept cars, and concept cars are just that. They are meant to show off a concept. They're never really meant to actually go into production. So I've done concept cars in the past, and I've done videos about concept cars, and everyone's like, oh, they should have made this, they should have made this, they should have made this. And I agree. I mean, it would have been cool if our Dodge Chargers looked like this on the streets, you know, back in 1982, but that just wasn't the case. A concept car is meant to be something that you can kind of strive towards, but not necessarily make. That's the big difference between a prototype and a concept car. A concept car is a pie in the sky, you know, what can we do to the best of our ability? A prototype is then actually sort of the rubber meeting the road and actually building something that would make sense. And so that's why this is a concept rather than a prototype. And so it's cool to see that Dodge was aiming towards this, not necessarily wanting to build something like this, but they were hoping that their cars kind of took on this sort of aura. We saw in the late 80s with that Daytona Pacifica Turbo that I drove, they started to put that, you know, curved nose up at the front. They started to add some of these features while not outright building these. And of course, I would have loved to have seen a K car with gull wing doors back in the day. It wasn't quite feasible. And so this is what Dodge wanted to do. This was, if they had no limits, they wanted to build this. But unfortunately, they do have limits, and rules and laws and regulations do exist. And so this car never got put into production, but it was a very cool showing of what could have been. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to the Claremont Collection as well as Mecum for allowing me to review this Daytona Turbo concept. This car is going across the auction block September 20th. So if you want to own this vehicle, it was previously on display in the Peterson Auto Museum and now in the Claremont Collection. You can do so with the link down in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.